So we're driving around Oklahoma City. We're going to look at the different neighborhoods from the redlining map, and we have the guests today. We have Representative Forrest Bennett.
I am Representative Forrest Bennett. I represent House District 92, which covers about a third of the inner city south side of Oklahoma City, and then the downtown core, and also midtown, and a couple of other little neighborhoods, many of which were coded red or yellow in this map here.
So we're in the red part now. We're sort of in the south part. We're going to jog our way around the city and hit some of the different neighborhoods. And Representative Bennett's going to describe what he sees and maybe how the city is developed, and talk about schools and supermarkets and all sorts of things.
Yeah, it's actually pretty interesting, and my wife would be a good person to talk to about the south side when it comes to education. She messed around and got herself appointed to the Oklahoma City School Board last fall. And the big challenge in Oklahoma City's south side right now is that the population is booming here. And Pathway to Greatness, which is a plan that the school district put together before she got on the board to sort of realign all of the feeder patterns and shut down some schools on the northeast side. But we still need at least another high school and probably another middle school and elementary school down here on the south side just to accommodate everyone. But you drive around here and you see that a lot of the core service needs, education and beyond, are all still being pretty ignored.
And a lot of the funds for that would come through property tax. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's another thing from a state perspective. I mean, the whole idea of public education is that it is supposed to be the great equalizer, that you walk across the threshold into a school and it doesn't matter what neighborhood you come from, what your parents do, you're supposed to have a fair shot. And the way we fund schools does directly the opposite. And I use the example of like driving up Walker Avenue. We live right off of Walker at Southwest 54th Street. And you go up and Adelaide Lee Elementary School is at 29th and Walker, and that's an overcrowded, underfunded school. And you drive a couple miles north to Wilson Elementary School, which is just off of Walker, and that's sort of nestled in there in Heritage Hills and Mesta Park, and it is one of the wealthiest public schools in the district, one of the most sought after. And so just a couple miles difference where you live, where your parents live, has such a huge impact on the trajectory of your life.
So we're on Grand, Southeast Grand now, which is the red zone. When we get to Robinson, we're going to turn into a blue zone, which is still desirable.
So this was desirable as of, do you remember what year?
Well, we're in the red zone.
And actually, I think what we'll see, if I'm right, is that the original streetcar line, we talked about this off camera, but the original streetcar line did come through this neighborhood that we're about to turn into. And that may have been a reason why that area was desirable at the time. At this point, I think it sort of probably fell into disrepair the same way a lot of the other neighborhoods down here did.
So this is Robinson, so now we're turning into one of the blue zones that's still desirable.
So right here, I believe, if I'm correct, and I may be wrong, I'm oftentimes wrong, but usually in the city when you see these huge medians, that's where the streetcar used to be. And so it went straight from downtown right down here. And so some of these are a lot of older houses, a lot of sort of, nicer for the area homes. And then there's Capitol Hill High School right here. Now we're crossing out of my district and into House District 89, which is about to be represented for the first time ever by a Hispanic legislator. A guy named Jose Cruz is probably going to win that. He's a friend of mine, but this district is the largest Hispanic population definitely in Oklahoma City, and I think probably in the entire state. It's really interesting to look at this neighborhood from the perspective of this map, because there are older houses that look a little nicer. You see, have been around for a while, but now they're like department, they've been broken down into multiple.
So this is the border between still desirable and declining. This part, or this road.
That's right. So desirable will be over there. The yellow. No, desirable is over here on the right. Declining is over there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay.
And when we hit 26th, we're back into the red line part.
So this map shows that
So we're in that little blue zone.
Right there. This map, this little blue square, surrounded by either red or yellow, and I think it must have succumbed to the lack of desirability of the neighborhoods around it in the time since the map was made. But you see little pockets of development, and there's a controversial development that we can talk about when we get up there. But there was Are you familiar with the Wheeler District development?
A little bit.
Well, Wheeler Park is on the north side of the river. Wheeler District is on the south side, west of Western, and actually the eventual development will straddle Western. But right now they're building a community there, and when they proposed this, they really made an effort to include the community, and they said that this would really, they'd try to do their best to integrate their community with what already existed, and not try to gentrify, but really try to capture the culture. And I just, to be honest with you, I'm not seeing that happen. Also, we were promised that there would be affordable housing, and they may just have a different definition of what affordable housing is than I do, but I think that the least you can get into that neighborhood for at this point is it's six figures. It's for small houses too.
So crossing over 26th. So this is back into the red zone.
Yeah. So the Capitol Hill neighborhood kind of starts. There's the College Park neighborhood right here between Western and Walker, where the Mount St. Mary's private school is,
mm-hmm.
and then directly east of that is Capitol Hill, and that used to be its own neighborhood. And in the map here, it's definitely red.
Yeah. So we'll be in the red until we get to Northwest 10th, and then we get into the green and the blue, which is like the green is the best, and the blue is still desirable neighborhood. So those are the nice neighborhoods, I guess, and also the ones where basically white people could get mortgages. And that was the real difficulty, is the banks would decide who can get a mortgage, and only certain races could get mortgage in certain areas. And without the mortgage, you can't get a house.
Now we're crossing the river. And the river, just to totally change subjects for a second, but the river is a huge dividing, sort of a mental dividing line for a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
There are streets that are technically south, they're labeled as south, but no one south of the river considers anything north of the river to be south at all. So south side starts at the river. And when the mayor was running for office, when he was a state senator, he was running for mayor, he asked a few of us on the south side for our endorsement, and I said, I want you to do a couple things. One, ride the bus with me, and two, come down the south side and really try to understand just how disconnected we feel. Because it's amazing, if you're on Walker and you go south, just how quickly you feel the Renaissance just sort of lift. It's not there anymore. It was the small 1,000 square foot house, 2-car garage, picket fence type of American dream, and it was a working class neighborhood. But that was at a time when working class, technically, you were making a wage that would allow you to put food on the table for your kids, and things were more affordable then.
As we learned in some of the other lessons, that the minimum wage, at least, has lost so much value. Real wages over time have either stayed the same or declined. So yeah, jobs that maybe paid a similar amount 30 years ago, you could afford things, and now housing costs more, and so the same wage gets you less. So we're crossing over Reno now.
Yep, and this is the new I-40 crosstown, where this is Oklahoma City Boulevard here that replaced the crosstown.
So if you looked at the original map, this was not on there.
No.
But it was in, a lot of the highway is on the red part of town. And so if there was a neighborhood there, it's too bad. Your neighborhood got torn down.
And you'll see that between the east and west sides of 235 as well. Just like a lot of major cities. And that's been discussed a lot lately. And one of the ways to just make sure that the wrong side of town and the right side of town stayed that way was you built a huge highway between the two of them. And in Oklahoma City, that's really evident.
That's Oklahoma City, New York City, like all cities across the country. That happened. All right, so now we're in the northwest first, although as we said, the river might be more of a dividing line.
Yeah, so we're basically, to my right is downtown, which county jail is there. And then to my left here is sort of the beginning of the industrial area of downtown, just west of downtown. And this is beginning to be developed, but it's slow.
Across Robert S. Kerr.
Yeah.
So we're in the yellow zone until we get a few more blocks till we get to 10th. And then maybe when we get to 10th, we'll maybe pop over a little bit to some of these neighborhoods to see the...
I would actually, if you wouldn't mind, I'd love to have you turn over on the right here at 7th or 8th Street.
Okay.
Because, so we're at 6th here, but it was a bunch of like bungalows and cottage homes earlier, but now, if you can see, it's a bunch of like this...
These are brand new, modern.
I used to live in this neighborhood, and actually, if you want to turn right, there's a possibility. Just in the time that I lived here, I moved to the corner of Walker and 8th, which is down this way, and then I lived in these townhomes here on the right at this corner. In fact, where that lady's standing, that's
Straight.
where I lived. Yeah, go straight. But in the time that I lived here, just a few years, a lot of these older houses got torn down, and these McMansions got built up.
Glad they're not tearing that one down.
Yeah, that's an old house, and the family that lived there when we lived there was really nice, but they moved, and now it's going to be turned into an office. And I got an apartment for like $600 when I moved in here back in like 2014. But that was like a crack house, basically. I don't know how to say it better. I mean, it was a drug house. People got stabbed out front there, and that's when I was living there. So now you can go left from there. We're in Midtown now. We're at 10th. We'll be at 10th up here. If you want to.
So 10th is the green and the blue. So now we're in what was the real desirable area. We might be in the green.
We're in the blue, yellow.
Okay.
Well.
So it's a little hard because some of these roads are new.
Yeah, and this roundabout is new.
I can never get on it. I'm on it. So we got nice shops.
Yeah.
Restaurants.
And this is all really, very, very much relatively new. It used to be, when I was living in this neighborhood, it was really McNelly's was the only place, which is down there on the corner. And Stella was here, and Louis. This hotel where Meg and I actually got married was not open yet, I don't think.
How long ago did you live here?
Back in 14, 15.
Okay. So not that long
13,
ago.
No, sorry, 12, 13, 14.
Yeah.
Yeah, so...
outdoor dining, right? This is a clearly well-developed area.
This was built, this was still under construction, this big apartment complex when I moved in. And I couldn't afford it for sure.
Straight?
Yeah,
This looks like a more residential.
Yeah, now we're going into, I see the 10th. Yeah, this is a...
All right, I've toured the mansion.
This is a beautiful, beautiful area that is definitely out of touch with me. But these houses, just take your pick. Turn left or right and go down any one of these, and you'll just be blown away by the homes.
So which neighborhood? The Heritage Hills.
This is called Heritage
So this
Hills.
is the neighborhood. Like you have home tours.
Yeah.
Lots of wealth.
Yeah.
So you have the doctors and the lawyers, the high-class professionals lived in this neighborhood and still do.
Yeah, it's like, from my perspective, it's legislators live in the neighborhoods we live in now, and then we pass through that revolving door into the high-paid lobbying gigs, and then we get to move into this neighborhood. That's how that works. But yeah, there's this, and then the Mesta Park is sort of right next door.
Yep.
And
Which
it's
is nice, but houses are a little smaller. Right?
Yeah, it's more of a. I think it's a little bit more accessible for younger families and couples.
Some professors live in that neighborhood.
Yeah, when you get tenure, I think.
Yeah.
But this is. I'm not surprised at all that this is in the green.
Yeah. So this when the map was drawn, these houses were built, most of them. And so people probably also wanted to protect. So who gets to draw the map? The people who live in this neighborhood draw the maps.
Right.
And they say, well, make sure that only a certain class of people can even get mortgages in this area. So now we're at the corner of Mesta Park and Heritage Hills.
Yeah. Okay, so the blue and the green are what?
So the green is the best, most desirable. The green is what they say still desirable.
Okay, blue is the best. Green is almost best. Or green and...
the green is the best.
Okay, got it. That's interesting, because we just passed 16th Street into the green area, and these houses, I would say, are actually a little newer and not quite as grand as the ones in what is shown here as blue, at least in this part. But that could be because at the time it was newer homes at the time being built here, and that sort of felt like the newer and more exciting place to live.
Yeah, I mean, one thing, Oklahoma City, like most cities, it has its ups and downs. And so, there's times when it was new and nice, and then basically an oil crash, and then some of these homes might have sat empty for a little bit.
Yeah. So we're about to hit 23rd Street.
Mm-hmm. Back into yellow.
And that, part of it where we're walking, that's exactly right here where we are, this little area, which is interesting. The yellow, the Paseo district, if you're talking about like sort of districts, neighborhoods where young people are attracted in Oklahoma City, I'd say the Paseo is probably one of the most organically grown of those. I mean, it's still a very strange place to live. I think my mom lived there when she was in college at UCO, and she was a hippie, and she still is. But 23rd Street itself has come a long way over the last few years too. And when I say that, I mean that's a double-edged sword. A lot of development has happened, but that also means that a lot of displacement has happened. And that's true of every area, except perhaps the Paseo, because you can still get a really, really affordable rent there.
For now.
So
a lot of what happens is people rent, but then maybe they want to renovate the house, so they wait till the lease is up, or they just kick the people out, and then renovate the house, and then someone has to come in to buy it, and it's much more expensive.
And then that sets off a ripple effect that makes life harder for everybody. One of the great examples of gentrification is this red Rooster Building right here. That used to be this smoky bar. It was sort of a dive, and it was everybody's favorite in this area. If you were looking for that kind of bar atmosphere. And it got shut down and renovated, and now it's like this sort of hipster place.
So you see these houses all over Oklahoma City.
The
style house. Yeah, I'm gonna go down here. I see them everywhere. It's probably the same builder, right? Basically got the same plan. You plop it up 1,000 times.
Yeah. Like Lego pieces, you kind of put different ones together.
Yeah.
It is a very unique style.
That's here.
So this is...
We'll ride up to 36th, then take our right.
This is Edgemere Park, and there are some real stunning homes and neighborhoods north of here. So we're in a green area.
So the Paseo is yellow. It's kind of surrounded by the greens and the blues, and now we're back into the green. And then we'll ride up to 36th through the green, then back
down
east a little bit, and then we'll come back down. So that was 235, and now we're back into
on the east side,
the yellow zone.
Yeah.
And so again, the highway is the border between different zones. It's very different than where we just were. So it's interesting is the capital is a no development zone or no label zone.
Yeah, so
where the capital originally was like the outskirts of the city.
But when we go down Kelly, when we get to the green area, I definitely want to turn in there
Sure.
a couple of those streets because that neighborhood, Lincoln Terrace, is an up and coming one that had all these old historic homes, but it was on the northeast side, and that's just not where people went, and that's definitely a holdover from what started here with redlining. But that neighborhood was green. It's green there, and it is fascinating to me to see this and look out here and just see the difference, because there's really no reason why some of these neighborhoods that are in yellow areas right next to green and blue shouldn't be just the same. But when you look at it, I mean, some of these are streets, and you just look on the other side of the street, and you can tell that something was holding that neighborhood back.
I mean, it could be a difference between rentals versus owning the home, right?
Yeah.
So people who are rentals tend to, treat the property a little different than people who own the homes.
This is where we walked. I mean, when we were at the Black Lives Matter rally, we walked down this street because it started at 36th and Kelly there.
I should say too, just between homeowners and rentals is the person who owns the property, the landlord, should be the one who's taking care of the property, and there's less of an incentive to do it.
And that remains a huge problem. The inability of the city to hold a lot of absent land property owners accountable, and that's a problem on the south side especially. In fact, one of the houses, I have a constituent in one of these red neighborhoods, and I'll try to take us through that area. So the governor's mansion property is right here on the corner too. So we're crossing over into a green area, and it just so happens that the governor's mansion is there.
Yeah, a couple more blocks. So 19th Street gets us into the green.
Oh, right, because we crossed over 23rd, right?
Yeah, here's 20th.
Right on that side is still yellow. This side is green.
Yeah, so here's 19th. So I think this puts us into the green. Are we on border?
Well, we were on a border before, but now we're all the way in. Earlier we were like straddling yellow and green. But it is so. This is telling of the time, because a lot of these houses at this point you wouldn't say. I mean, they're nice, but they're not like Heritage Hills nice. At least here, you get a little bit further west, and they are. But it's very telling of the time that what was defined as like wealth and opulence was different. Probably not using the right words, but
It's not worse. It's more of the medical hospital district here.
yeah, and this had to have grown quite a bit. But so we're back in the red now. Almost.
Yeah, we're at some borders.
So we're still in the green, but the red starts where the hospital starts, which is fascinating.
Suggests there's probably some neighborhoods that they tore all the houses down to build the hospitals. So you don't tear the nice houses down. It's usually in the other neighborhoods.
So actually, because we're over here, up here and down a ways, there's new development happening in the northeast side, and I'm not sure how to feel about it. So there's a development over here called Page Woodson, and it's this old school that they turned into apartments. And then they're building other apartments around it. And there's some black-owned businesses that have taken up space in the commercial spaces at the bottom of some of these buildings, and it's pretty cool. My hope is that that it'll be sort of the spirit of the Northeast Side will be maintained as they continue to develop it, and that the neighborhood itself, will benefit, because I think that's probably the bigger challenge now, is not whether Oklahoma City continues to get sort of revamped and developed, but how, and whether the culture is maintained in the communities that it's happening to. I guess you should say whether it happens to a community or happens in a community, because there's a huge difference. Because some of these, some of what goes on here is white people moving back in, basically, for lack of a better.
I think you've seen over time is white people moved out of the city to the suburbs, and the last decade or so people have been moving back.
Yeah.
Part of that is fluctuating crime rates, wanting to live in more walkable neighborhoods. It's not really something you can do in the suburb. You got to drive everywhere.
Right.
Mix of people having children, not having children, and that has to do with schools.
Right. Yeah, that changes the conversation about where Meg and I will move next if we do.
Fewer people are having children, and that varies a lot by race. So white people are much less likely to have children now.
They recently announced a new development in one of the last large plots of vacant land downtown. It's actually kind of between downtown and midtown, and they're building a huge, I think it's like 470 unit, for the sake of the discussion, we'll say it's 470 unit apartment complex, and only like 70 of those units are going to be affordable. I mean, defined as affordable housing.
Is there a formal definition of affordable, like a legal, right? So
Yes,
sometimes you can get a
sure.
permit, you have to have affordable housing.
Yeah, I think in this case it's like subsidized, or I'll do some research. But so right ahead is that's 235 there, and right under there and to the left is the old Deep Deuce neighborhood. And Deep Deuce is a really nice, dense community now, but that was a historically black neighborhood. It was I-40.
So we've sort of skipped the Bricktown area, which people know pretty well.
Yeah, we just drove like the outskirts of it.
Yeah, which has been a redeveloped area within the red zone.
Yeah, that's right. It's right here, and that's sort of Oklahoma City's first new entertainment development that happened when there was a migration back downtown. This is the River Sport area. That whitewater spot is it's an Olympic training ground. If you know. In the beginning of Oklahoma City Boulevard, which was just super hyped for some reason. I was actually part of that discussion years ago about sort of the battle between some urbanists in Oklahoma City and ODOT and the city trying to design the Crosstown Expressway that would replace the old I-40. And they said, look, this is our chance. This is a generational opportunity to really guide the city towards a more walkable future. And we need this Crosstown Expressway. If you're gonna do it, make it street level. All right, now we're going over the river again. Back into the south side.
So we're back in your district.
Yeah.
There's someone's house you wanted to show us.
Oh yeah, that'll be a little bit further south along 35. But this neighborhood here, if you go, I think this is 15th here.
Go left.
Yeah, if you want to go left. Now back on the south side. But you'll see some. I mean, this is one of the poorer neighborhoods. So There's a few things I can point out here to show you. Just, I mean, a lot of these tiny houses are old, run down, but have been here forever. And then you have random things like this house, which has all of this property, and
a barbed wire fence.
Yeah, I mean, the desire to keep the undesirables out is still very much alive here. But this is the only place that a lot of people can afford to live. I know a few people that grew up in these public housing that's up here on the right. And I knocked doors around there, when I was first running, and those folks had not seen anybody from any type of government in a long time that was there to ask them how they were doing and see what they needed. That's this area here. If you want to, I mean, you can turn right whenever you want to. This is it.
So is it the city that pays for this? Pays for the subsidy, or is it a mix?
Yeah, it is a mix.
State?
This is
probably some federal money.
This may be a housing authority. Okay, city housing authority.
Which might be another sort of layer of government.
But it's been there for a long time. And this neighborhood here is called Top of the Town on the left, and it's a different place. My car got stolen in here. If you want to swing through, that'd be kind of fun. You know what? I haven't checked in on this weird architectural marvel.
Yeah. What
in
is
a couple
this?
of years? Somebody's building it, like themselves.
A little out of time.
Yes, and when I was knocking it first, it was probably a third of that height.
So that actually still probably has to do with the fact that people can't get loans. So you do it when you have money.
Yes.
If you go to Guatemala, Peru, there's parts of that area where like people build their house a little at a time. The expectation of like, well, when I get some more money, I'll put the second story on.
Right. It's not a high voting population here, but they do feel this is the house where, I mean, there's a woman who lives here who said that they've lived here since the house was built, and at this time this was sort of the city limits for Oklahoma City, which is just wild because you're thinking about.
Yeah, I mean, so there's 35.
Yeah, turn right here. I saw a man on a horse one time when I was walking. I took a selfie. I think I posted it on social media. That was a good time.
You'll see horses in downtown Dallas on Katy Trail.
Yeah. This wasn't that. This is the street where my car got stolen, and this was, it's not this house, but it was down here. Right here. And nobody wanted to.
No one saw anything.
Nobody saw anything. You can turn left here. Oh, never mind. They'll let you. Now there's a cul-de-sac.
So this house really stands out, right?
Yeah,
like,
this one's fascinating.
A new house.
You can just flip it around here if you want.
Sorry.
Yeah, it's pretty random that it's here.
Bet you someone owned the property for a long time and then built a house.
Yeah.
I find a lot of that in Oklahoma, where like, oh, granddad bought the property,
Mm-hmm.
we've just been sitting on it,
Mm-hmm.
and then you build a house on it.
Yeah, it's a whole other world. I mean, and people down here would say Nicholas Hills is a whole other world too. But so that's an interesting thing. We consider the South Side. I mean, if you look at Google Maps, South OKC is like further south from here. But we joke there's a difference between South Side and South Oklahoma City. South Oklahoma City starts at about 240. And downtown starts north of 40. South side is I-40 to 240, north to south, and 44 to 35, east, west to east. And that within that area, which I represent about half of, Jose Cruz will represent, well, about a third of. He'll represent about a third of it, and Mickey Dollins represents about a third of it. A lot of these kids have not been outside of the confines of those interstates, and it's amazing to think about it in that way. But NASA did like an engineering week, like they came to multiple Oklahoma City schools a couple of years ago, and a retired astronaut came to Capitol Hill Elementary School in my district and talked to the kids, like 4th or 5th grade kids, and he's giving them a presentation saying, NASA believes that the person that will set foot on Mars is alive today and is probably about your age. Talking to these kids, and these kids, they've not been north of the river. It's impossible for them to imagine themselves going to space. And it was really fun to watch them sort of, you could see them sort of imagine what that could be like, and imagine for the first time that they could be the person that does that leaves this neighborhood and goes out there. But we've got to do a lot of work to help them understand that they can even get out of college, get out of high school, So, there's also a lot of pressure on some of these kids to help the family. There's a kid that lives across the street from me. His dad is a plumber, and he helps his dad, but he really wants to be a police officer. He's down the street.
I pay my plumber good money.
Yeah, no, he's great, and it's I got to tell you, pretty great to have a plumber across the street from me, because he gives us the friends and family discount. So yeah, now we're back, and you look to the right here, and you think maybe you're in some rural area, but you're not. Okay, let's go. We can just go right here if we're trying to stay in the area. This whole area out here was not even a part of the original map. Do you think that historically across the country this was happening, that the actual maps were happening around the same time?
Oh yeah.
Where do you think the trend started?
I would guess like New York, Chicago. But the real estate agents all get together, right? They probably have some national convention, and it spreads a little bit. Same with the bankers.
Sure.
Now the thing is, back then it was local banks, right? So it wasn't your Wells Fargo writing all the mortgages, it was the local banks. And those people lived in those communities, right? They lived in the blues, maybe some of the greens. Some of them probably owned property. Right, so you set up yourself, like, oh, I own some property here. So it might be a neighborhood where you look like, geez, why was this put in blue or green? Maybe because the banker owned the property and wanted to sell it, sell all the homes and make some money.
Right.
Some of these red neighborhoods, the property tax rates actually run higher than the values of the homes based on sales.
I see.
And then some of the nicer neighborhoods, the property tax rates are below, or the property tax valuations, are below the sale values. Actually, what it is people who live in the greens and the blues will challenge their valuations.
Yeah.
And they win more often.
Yeah.
The people in the reds, they challenge less, and when they do challenge, they're less likely to win.
Right now.
Go right?
We could go. Yeah, sure. We already did this once, but...
Yeah.
But actually, we didn't drive straight up Walker. You'll see Capitol Hill neighborhood, and then we can cross over to Robinson and drive up, and we'll be right between the park and the new convention center. And I can kind of explain that'll be actually pretty good. Gosh, I'm smart. You guys are so lucky I'm in the car right now.
We are. So are the students.
Yeah, sure. This is all... No, I guess this is...
Straight?
Yeah, we'll keep it straight. This is all red. But this Capitol Hill blue box here was really interesting to me. So we're in this may be the one anomaly here. We're in this little blue box down here, but I would not have told you if you had asked me. I would not have thought that these neighborhoods were at that time.
So this is the Capitol Hill.
Yeah, this is Capitol Hill. Well, Capitol Hill actually, like, the business district is up here on the other side of 29th. But it is interesting to me, and I think that part of that probably is what I was talking about earlier, that like this neighborhood, especially Capitol Hill, was. I mean, there's an old Capitol Hill Baptist Church, which is on 240 now, but used to be up here, but it was just a bunch of white people that moved their whole church because they didn't like the diversification that was happening in the neighborhood. But like, I think that's probably what happened here. This was like middle class, working class, white folks in this area that were trying to protect it. If you'll turn on 25th Street, which is also called Commerce Street, a long time ago, Capitol Hill was its own city. And there's a Greasy Spoon diner here called Grill on the Hill, and it's delicious.
This drive brought to you by Grill on the Hill.
Grill on the Hill. But it's there's a bunch of historical stuff in there. You'd love to sort of probably spend your entire lunch just kind of looking around. And this neighborhood, I think, is gonna grow. It's just that, like I said, how will it grow? You know, will it maintain its culture or not? Steve Mason built this or bought this old theater and turned it into the Yale, and it's a really nice venue now. So we're back on Robinson, which I mean, it's another fascinating. If you had to drive from the north end of the city to the south end on one street, Robinson is a really fascinating one. Very important place is the taqueria up here. It's where they make tortillas for Chileans, and that is very important. Very important place. So this is Wiley Post Park on Sundays. This is jam-packed with families that are having like Sunday picnics and stuff. Then on 4th of July, you come down here, you park on the bridge, you look to the left and the right, and just everybody's doing their own fireworks show, and it's just one magnificent thing. The next day is pretty depressing because everybody's left their firework trash all over the place. But it's on the north end, on the south end of the shore, everybody. It's one of the best kept secrets that the south side doesn't necessarily want the north side to know. Another interesting thing, this whole swath of land right here to the left is also part of Scissortail Park, but it has not even begun to be developed. They just blocked it off.
So there's the bridge, right? And so the other side of the bridge is what you think of as the park.
It's the current park, yeah. And the mayor says, and then over here, like all of this, they expect to have all of it developed, and people have already started buying up some of these properties. But there were a lot of old buildings that looked a lot like this on this side of the street as well. I used to ride my bike up here every morning and back down. Like, fine, but the south end, I think, is slated to be sports, like field. I think there'll be some soccer fields and some other recreational stuff, which the south side desperately needs. Mm-hmm. You know, we need places for kids. In fact, Generation Citizen is this nonprofit organization that installs people in schools, and it's happening across Oklahoma City now, thanks to a grant. But these kids do these democracy projects basically, and one semester kids will do like city focused, and the other semester they'll do state focused. And one of the city focused ones that these kids on the south side came up with was they want community centers where the kids can go, that they don't have to pay to access, but that is safe and good for them. So there's Scissortail Park. Yeah, we should turn here. And that was really moving to me because these are kids that, you know, I mean, the stereotype is that these kids just don't, you know, they don't care about anything, but they do. They care quite a bit, and they want to see their community thrive, and they want to have a good, safe place for them to hang out, utilize the park. Myriad Gardens is also operated by the same, like Scissortail and Myriad are operated by the same entity.
So what color is this on the map?
Let me see. Well, it's not.
Oh, Okay, so this was the undeveloped.
Yeah. Yeah, it's hard to remember what this looked like before the streetcar and everything else, but this is, and then you've got sort of these remaining swaths of land that I think people are probably going to, the owners of these properties are probably just going to sit on them until they get the right price.
Right.
Imagine being able to have like a large affordable housing apartment unit, apartment building right there on the park. This is the Energy Assist Foundation put this up, and then the Griffin Brothers Foundation put the basketball court up there, and futsal and basketball, and a lot of kids enjoy that. If you drive by here just about any night in the summer or spring and fall, kids are there as well. And having the park finished up for those kids would be great too. The Oklahoma City Energy soccer team does a lot of outreach on the south side too, because of the love of soccer in the Hispanic community, and they're doing an academy system like they do in Europe, where you start developing talent at a very young age. So you got the city building here, just for the reference for the people that are watching. Yeah, I'm happy with the way a lot of this has come together. Would just love to see it in other areas too. And this is my district as well, so I'm proud of that. I'm proud of what's going on. I'm proud of the number of breweries that I have in my district, because it makes it very fun for me to support local business in my district. So this is an example of a place right here, this little diner here. The people who own that building continue to ask for outrageous rents for that place, and so there've been a couple of there've been a couple of food concepts that have come in and gone out, but they're really trying to stress test what's palpable for this area. I think that there are some people that look at Midtown and I think that there are opportunities to take advantage of the wealthier people that live in these communities, but all that does is, I think, continue to make this area inaccessible for them. That was one of the reasons that Meg and I moved out of Midtown, was that the rents were going up, our rent was going up, and our property was not being maintained by the landlord in such a way that reflected the justification of an increase in rent, and so we found a really affordable house on the south side with what they call a backyard. I may not have a Tesla, but I do have a battery-powered mower.
Ooh.
Yeah. I don't mean to brag. When I was a kid, my grandparents lived on a lot of land, and they would disable the blade and let's just drive the mower around their property.
Where did you go? Bartlesville, right?
Yeah. And they lived on 10 acres, so there was like some wooded areas, and then they had some pastures that we would take our mower out on. They had a little trailer that you could hook onto the mower, and people would ride, like my brothers would ride in that. Yeah, it was a good time. So this neighborhood, the Plaza District, I would say second to the Paseo, is one of the more organically grown districts, and you're seeing the development around here.
It's very new development too, right? Based on the style of the homes.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. I would say that while the Paseo certainly maintained more of its personality, the Plaza has had probably one of the more significant impacts of any little entertainment district that Oklahoma City has.
And is this
here? We're in the blue-green area.
Yeah.
But I got to tell you, like when they started developing this, that was certainly not the case. But it just goes to show that like the bones were here for that. All the ingredients were right to make it a successful place. But my wife, when she moved to Oklahoma City first, when we were just dating, she lived in an apartment that was right behind Bad Granny's here, and there's like a dive bar right behind that we couldn't sleep because they played music until 4 or 5 a.m. But once again, it was really affordable when she lived there, and then you're paying twice as much as she was paying for a rent in that tiny apartment now. And that Empire is the best pizza in the whole world. But they also don't have a grocery store. They've got that gas station it's like a bodega too. But in this area, you've got the Homeland on Classen that just got renovated. You know what was fascinating about that too is Meg and I would go to that Homeland all the time when we lived in Midtown, and it was run down at the time. But people in Heritage Hills and Mesta Park largely didn't go to that Homeland, and they'd say, "Gosh, we don't have a grocery store around here." Yeah, you do. You just don't like it. So now we're on Penn in 16th. So this was all deemed desirable at the time too. So I think this has like a lot more to do with white flight than it does redlining. The way that these neighborhoods look now.
In Oklahoma City, probably more so than some other cities, though. I think had real up and down. The downs are really low because of the oil.
Yeah.
Other cities like New York City for a long time had lots of sort of downs, but I don't think it was ever really as low as the oil boom and bust. It's so dependent on one industry.
Yeah, your New York cities and places like that don't have that challenge. These neighborhoods still have like these little storefronts, and there was one back there too. They tore down all of the historical buildings around downtown to make way for this grand master plan that they had. It was called the Pay Plan, and it just killed us. It was so short-sighted. They spent all of the money tearing buildings down, and then I think there must have been an oil downturn. Is that what happened? And it just, yeah, that's right. And then it just got it so downtown ended up being just decimated. And so, all of that. So we really kind of set ourselves back by decades by doing that. While you see Tulsa, I maintain that we're better than Tulsa, but that's a relatively recent deal. Tulsa used to feel like, well, we're the old money people. We're high society. Oklahoma City is just sort of they're just a bunch of bums down there. But it wasn't until we started passing maps programs that Oklahoma City started catching up, and now I feel like we're ahead. We've got the NBA team and all these other things. But that just from a development standpoint, Tulsa was always more poised to succeed because they didn't do stupid things like the Pay Plan.